Well, thank you, Judi, for joining us again
Oh, sure.
today.
Now I see everybody.
Yes, there we are. It's good to see you. You mentioned the work that you did with white clay. I know a couple of years ago, white clay was really in the news. I have not caught a lot of it in the news recently. Can you give us an update on how things are in white clay and maybe hopefully positive changes?
Since the bill passed, we did have a kind of like a task force meeting up there, and we all went up, and it was at the senior center that's located in Nebraska that the Oklahogs who have Senator Patty Pansy Brooks, myself, and others, Senator Brewer. So we did hold a meeting, and then we went over to the street of white clay, which is in Nebraska. It was changing then, and now it's transformed. You wouldn't even recognize it. It is just so much better. They have a Dollar General store there, which is, you know, a real boon to the area. And they are working on a maker space. So that's also going to provide a lot of opportunities for tribal people to do a variety of, you know, businesses and things through that. So I think it was a big success. There still is, you know, some people that would like to see it reopened, and unfortunately, hopefully that will never happen. Let's pray that that doesn't happen. But out of that came the LB 154, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women candy that we've talked about in our interview. When I did my final meeting with Senator Brewer and Senator Patty Pansy Brooks, I said, I have one more little thing that I'd like to have us include in that report. Let's have a bill to deal with missing and murdered Indigenous women. So that was LB 154, it passed. And now this next session, I'm going back with another bill that Patty has agreed to introduce. That will be to create an official task force. So it's not just an advisory meet as whatever, but it will be statutorily, so it will have teeth in that. We want to have representation from the entity stakeholders that need to be there, whether that's the Attorney General's office, tribal police, because a lot of the challenges dealing with missing and murdered Indigenous women is the various legal quagmire, if you will. You have the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you have the BIA, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and so a lot of things happen, they fall through the cracks, and there's a lack of communication and knowledge about Indian police and what's going on, and lack of reporting. As I told you, a lot of people were unclear as to when you could report someone missing. Untruths out there that it was 48 hours. No, as soon as they go missing, and if they go missing multiple times, every time you report them. So that's that.
Thank you. Well, and we've had a couple of questions about, they wanted to hear more about your youth academy and also your missing women and children initiatives. So if you want to expand on those two.
Okay, well, if you as an organization or members would like to be supportive to our missing and murdered Indigenous women, that's something that you can do. You can locally with your senators, representatives, support what we are trying to do. State Patrol in the report that came out of LB 154 was more on the end of what do you do once the person's missing. So law enforcement wise, we want to also look at the underlying risk factors that make the women so vulnerable. So we need more money from the legislature for one bill that I passed in 1998. Hasn't received any increase in funding, and that was the Native American Public Health Fund. Each tribe receives $100,000. So I'd like to go back to the legislature. Maybe not this year with COVID, it's going to be a tough fiscal year to ask for funds, but going forward, we need more money to address the risk factors, because that is why we're suffering with COVID, and that's why we're missing and murdered. There are a lot of things that we are not funded enough for. And so that's one thing you can do. As far as our Youth Leadership Academy, we've been doing that for 8 years. We now partner with the Mid-American Transportation Center. This year we had to do a Zoom because of COVID. It didn't go so well, partly because of the broadband access. That's something else you could all help us with when we go to look for support, that all rural communities, including tribal communities, have access to broadband, because that's a barrier to equitable education. So we only had a few students, but one of our partners this year was the Jocelyn. They did some really creative things, and so next year we'll bring them back. And it's always better, as we all know, this being social distance and not together, it's hard to communicate. And also, as Native people, we're very extended family, and these elbow things aren't as good as hugs. And we miss our children. We miss seeing the kids, because we have a lot of repeat students that come, high school kids from the reservations. They come into Lincoln. We want to expose them to opportunities, remove barriers and fears, but also what our camp does that I really like is it's culturally intact. We have many interactions with leaders in all fields, teachers. Most of our counselors are Native American. Many have gone to the University of Nebraska and other colleges in Nebraska. We also have traditional storytellers, etc. So it's a combination. We don't have to give up who we are as Indian people, and the kids can be proud to be a Ho-Chunk, but also proud of Go Big Red.
Very true. Very true. That's Standing Bear Scholarship that you talked about. Has that actually gone? Is that something that you're currently putting together, or is that several years old?
That is something that started back in 2005.
Oh, a long,
15
yes.
years. But what really helped us with that, we were working on endowing it over at the Lincoln Community Foundation. So over there right now, I think I have about $90,000, and we fund to the institution per that is required. Well, a couple years ago, we had a bill passed to create a tribal license plate. And that's a plate anyone can buy. And monies from that we've generated off of the license plate, much like the Mountain Lion plate of Senator Ernie Chambers. We have raised $55,000 from the license plate sales. That's in a business unit over here at our Indian Commission agency. It can't go to LCF because it's state money. So we're going to start awarding 4 $5,000 scholarships from that. We then, the projection is off of renewing your license plate and new sales, we will be generating $20,000 a year from the tribal license plate. So that's pretty exciting. And then with our monies at LCF. But we're still always, we want to get the LCF fund endowed. So I have to get that up to about $140,000. I'm planning on a fundraiser next fall. Because of COVID, we've had to move it forward. That will coincide somewhat to do with the new prize that we're going to have, the Standing Bear Prize for Courage. That was initiated by Dr. Greg Wright. And he does one at the University of Nebraska, the Courage Prize for the astronaut who died in space, Krista McCullough.
Oh, Mr.
So Greg started that way back when that happened 30 years ago. And he's a neighbor of mine, and he loves the Standing Bear story. So one day I was on a walk and he tagged along and said, Judi, I've got an idea. So Greg gets all the credit. We have a committee, and we are going to announce that prize, and we'll be giving that, I believe, next fall in conjunction with Indigenous Peoples Day, our first official Indigenous Peoples Day, which will be next October. The bill passed, but because of the session shutting down and coming back, it didn't go into effect until November 13th. So we'll have it next year, and we'll award one award. It's a national award. We'll give $5,000 to some person that lives their life in a way of courage in the spirit of Standing Bear. So another exciting thing that we're working on. And that person will also get a little tiny Oscar size standing bear that's in Statuary Hall or over here on Centennial Mall, done by Ben Victor. And we have someone that's donating, covering the cost of that. Someone else is going to donate the money for the scholar or the prize. And another one of our members is donating the travel and the lodging. So just different components of that Standing Bear's Prize for Courage. And if any of you are interested in that, you could donate to that, and our monies will be at LCF eventually. I think we're still working on that.
Wonderful. Well, I think that you're doing, just as a aside, I had asked recently about the license plates and money they generated. And the response was there's the mountain lion license plate and there's everybody else. So I think to have raised 55,000 is very good based on, you know, the mountain lion license plate's a pretty high bar, I understand, to
over 100,000. Wow,
yeah,
way more
than they've raised. So you guys have done a great job. So there's also, what is the timeline on the graphic storybooks that you were telling us about that the artists and writers were involved in? Are those
the comic book?
Or the comic books, yes.
Yes, that's the NSF COVID grant at the University of Nebraska, and they will be up on their website. Let's see, what is that called? I can't think of Judy's website right now. Something viral. Probably if you just Googled in COVID NSF grant comic books, you would be able to get that. They'll have ours posted. We're hoping they'll be there in November, because November is National Native American Heritage Month. So our goal is to have them. Henry Payer is right now working on, we have been working on the stories. I've been helping Judi and Bob Hall for weeks. Every Monday we Zoom for an hour and they write the script and then I help and give input. We also have Roger Welsh. He's a folklorist, storyteller. You might know Roger. He's giving some historic accuracy and cultural accuracy. We want to make sure that everything is as authentic as possible. I am Ponca and Santee. I am not Omaha. So I can't be, you know, an expert on that. So we always want to find people from the tribe and others that can weigh in.